Hey, it's me, Egbert. E-G-G-B-U-R-T. Check out my website at egbert.com. Now it's back to those two dudes who told me they would bring in big ratings. They better are their history. Here are Brad and John.
John, have you kept up with this interesting story? I find it fascinating about this mayor up in one of the Chicago suburbs who is spending money like crazy. It's predominantly a black community, and I think the average income is like $24,000 a year, and I think her salary is like, I can't remember her exact number, but she's making more money per year than Governor Pritzker is. But of course, who cares about that because he's a billionaire? You know who I'm talking about?
I only know about the story because you brought it up, and while we've been on the air, I've skimmed the stories about it. But remind me, wasn't she spending money on on makeup and getting her hair done and things that? Or am I stereotyping?
Yeah, she's self-identified herself as the Illinois super mayor. Her name is.
I like
she's
that.
not just a mayor; she's a super mayor, and her name is Tiffany Henyard. And if you've ever seen it, it's sort of funny when she's doing the city council things. She has a special microphone that is gold. She just doesn't have a regular microphone.
Oh, that's nice. What a diva.
Okay,
I like that attitude. That's very attractive.
Here's the story. Okay. And this is making the rounds today in some of the news sites. Tiffany Henyard, the self-anointed super mayor of a Chicago suburb, is under fire after she threw an $85,000 party that featured R&B singer Kiki Wyatt and rapper Jay Holiday last month, but hardly anyone attended, according to media reports. Henyard, the mayor of Dolton, D-O-L-T-O-N, Dolton, Illinois, has come under heavy criticism for spending of taxpayer funds for first-class travel, concerts, and more. Quote, that was a flop, former Dolton trustee Valerie Stubbs, who went to see the mini concert for herself at the Taste of Thornton Township event. $85,000. Wyatt was paid $30,000 to sing for 30 minutes. Jay Holiday was paid $20,000 for a half-hour set, according to records obtained by the news outlet through the Freedom of Information Act. The township spent another $6,000 to rent inflatable bounce houses. Other costs included money for comedians, a sound system, staff, and equipment. In total, the gig cost taxpayers $85,769. Can you believe this? And it's a small town. Let me see if I can find on Wikipedia. I think there's only it would sort of be like akin to, I don't know, like maybe not like a Ferguson. Ferguson's probably bigger than that, but I'm trying to think if it would like a
Hillsdale or like a Belnor, maybe like a Belnor.
No, Belnor's I think smaller. Okay,
we get the point. It's a small municipality.
20.
And so Brad, what I hear here is she's trying to have a good time on behalf of her constituents. And there's some people who say she shouldn't be throwing parties. Why shouldn't she be able to lift the spirits of the townfolk?
2020 census was 21,426, so it's relatively small. And does it give the population density, history, geography, demographics? Back in 1880, there were only 448 people. Matter of fact, what's interesting was, this is not good. In 1970, the population was 25,000 and change. In 1980, it was 24,000 and change. 1990 was 23,000 and change. And in 2020, it goes down to 21,000. So they're losing population. The change from 2000 to 2010 was off 9.6%. The change from 2010 to 2020 was off 7.5%. What does that tell you? 7,985 households, racial makeup 90.69% African American, 3.25% white, 0.17 Native American, 0.21 Asian, 0.01 Pacific Islander. Other races 3.04 from two or more races. Hispanic or Latino of any race were 4.37 population. And man, it's just, and once again, their median income for a household in the village was $50,000. Median income for a family was $57,000. Males had a median income of $33,939 versus $33,000 for $354 for females. So there's one good thing to say about Dolton. They complain about the
the pay gap, the
right.
alleged fake pay gap.
Pay gap.
Yes.
In Dolton, there is no pay gap. The men and women make the. Here we go. Per capita income for the village was 22,135%. About 15.4% of the families and 22% of the population were below the poverty line, including 42% of those under age 18 and 13% of those age 65 or over. So it's not doing well. And yet she's gallivanting all over. She takes these trips and she has her hair done, and it's all paid for by the taxpayers. And what's interesting is, I don't want to be a nerd about this, but they appointed a special investigator, and guess who the special investigator is?
Fonnie Willis.
Lori Lightfoot, the former mayor of Chicago.
There's no way you're serious.
I am serious as a heart attack.
Talk about the fox and the
right.
the hen house, or
right.
whatever metaphor you want to use there. Oh my God, that's great.
Yeah, and Lori Lightfoot complained about the fact that they asked for all these records, and guess what? They got practically none of the records. So Lori Lightfoot.
Yeah. Well, I can imagine we would assume that Lightfoot and this woman would get along, but there's probably with the women, there's probably a professional jealousy and who's the stronger black woman and whatever kind of disputes they would have. I would say, Brad, though, people get the government they deserve. And so if this woman was elected and the voters don't like it, they can vote her out of office. And we talk about Tashara Jones all the time.
There's a parallel.
Boy, her election wasn't even close last time, Brad.
Right. There's a parallel between Dolton, Illinois, and Springfield, Ohio. Do you know this parallel?
No, I don't.
Well, there's catfights in Dolton, Illinois, which are between the mayor and Lori Lightfoot, and there are catfights in Springfield, Illinois. The catfights in Springfield, Illinois are the Haitians fighting over which cat they're going to eat. That's the difference.
Oh, my God. That's so funny, Brad. You should capture that, and maybe you should make that a soundbite for the show. That's really good. By the way, I found out what the edited Charlton Heston quote was. Our friend Kelton reached back out to us, Brad.
Okay, what was the edited? What did he say?
The edit is that the original line from the movie is, "Take your stinking paws off me, you." Can we say DAMN on the air?
Well, as long as we say Hoover.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Take your stinking paws off me, you Hoover damn dirty ape. And the clip that you played actually censored the damn out, Brad. The Hoover damn out, Brad. So thank you to Kelton. Kelton texted me that yesterday. So now we know that Charlton Heston actually dropped a 4-letter D word in that movie.
You know, people make fun of him. But you know what? He's one of those guys that just he did not fit the Hollywood mold. You know, once again, he was married to his wife for 55 years or something like that before one of them passed away. Remember? And I don't know if you remember this or not. He was one of the past presidents of the National Rifle Association. Did you know that?
Oh yeah, I mean that's where the famous quote comes from, right?
What? Which quote? Take your damn.
Which is from my from my cold dead hands.
Yeah, well, no, I don't think that's from him. Is that from him?
Pretty sure it is, yeah.
Okay, maybe it's from him. And by the way, the NRA is just in shambles right now. I mean,
they're your favorite group, Brad. Don't you still give a lot of money to them?
No.
Now, you haven't talked about them in a while. Are there any developments with Second Amendment groups? Because I don't follow that sect that closely.
What's interesting funny you should mention that, there is a guy who was a long-time lobbyist for the NRA, and the NRA has this subsidiary called the ILA, I think it's called.
Institute for Legislative Affairs. That's always been their lobbying and PAC group.
Right, the ILA. This guy quit the NRA and started his own new pro-2 amendment organization. And if you know what's happened with the NRA, this is my complaint about not-for-profits. Okay, when you say not-for-profits, people go, "Oh, they probably go in their office. They probably have card tables set up, and they're probably sitting on milk crates, and they probably have no air conditioning or heat." Well, when you go to most not-for-profits, it's like, holy cow, leather furniture, once again, your churches, for the most part, are not-for-profits. They don't pay any taxes. They don't pay real estate taxes, anything like that. This is what happened with the NRA. And guys like, Wayne LaPierre, whatever his name was, they have a corporate jet, and Wayne would take the corporate jet down to the Bahamas and things like that. And I'm going like, okay, here you are taking the money from average Joes and Josephines who believe in the Second Amendment. They're giving you your money, and you are squandering it on living the lifestyle, okay? Living the lifestyle that 0.001% of the members of the NRA live. Because let's be honest, most NRA folks are sort of hardworking, blue collar, not always, but that's sort of the angle of it. And once again, make fun of me. I've been to NRA conventions. Years ago, they had the one here in St. Louis. I went, huge success, but yet they got into this crazy thing where, once again, what happened to the organization? The board got stacked with all LaPierre's buddies, and if he decided we're going to go out and buy limousines for all the board members, they would say, oh, that's a great use of our money. That's the problem with these boards. You and I've talked about it, the situation with like boards of education. Everybody's going like, well, now hold on a minute. Now in St. Louis City, how come the board didn't necessarily step in and do all these what's her name, Keisha Sunshine, or what's the
Let's call her Keisha Sunshine.
No, what happened to her? I mean,
I don't. We haven't heard any developments on that. But go ahead. Continue with your point though.
Well, but the point being is, you look at this thing and see, it's like me. Once again, I don't. If Mayor Pagano, I know Mayor Pagano, and he's a nice guy. I know Mayor Borgmeyer, and he's a nice guy. And there's probably the perfect example. Mayor Pagano has a beautiful city hall, as does Nick Guccione, who's the mayor of Wentzville, as does the mayor of Darden Prairie. Matter of fact, I can't say too many bad things. I will say something right now positive about the mayor of Darden Prairie, because you know what we're advertising on our very radio station?
No, I don't.
Darden Prairie has some office space they're not using at the city hall, and they're going to rent that out to people who want to have an office in the city hall.
That's nice.
And I'm thinking to myself, okay, I like that idea because of the fact that they have some spare space that they can generate some revenue from. You know what I mean? It's to the point where I like that idea. The point being is they build these lavish city halls, and same in the city of St. Charles. Have you ever been to St. Charles City Hall? It's downtown St. Charles, very modern-looking building. Nope, we can't have that building anymore. We've got to build a new fancy place down the street. I don't get it.
Let's go back to the nonprofits though. So I think there's a happy medium there, and I'm going to play devil's advocate. So just look at this practically, Brad. So pick a nonprofit. Like what's a random nonprofit you would say in the metro region? Just pick one.
I don't know. I mean, any of I mentioned, I'd probably not be happy with, to be honest with you.
Okay, so let's say March of Dimes. Well, for the sake of conversation, let's just say March of Dimes, right?
Right.
So let's say Bear is laying off, in real life, Bear is laying off a ton of people. So you want to, and let's say those folks are like, hey, I'm in the final third of my career. I know folks that are like this. They're like, I'm in the final third of my career. I'd like to do something meaningful. Now, if you're going to attract talent that actually has talent and skill, and let's say the average, well, we won't throw out salaries here, but the point is, Brad, you're not going to attract people that want to walk into a building and sit down at a card table if they're already making peanuts and they don't get any sort of benefits and they're working in a shack. You're going to attract the type of people that will tolerate working in a shack for peanuts. Now, there's people that say, but the mission should be go F yourself. You're not going to get anybody with any kind of skill or talent if you don't pay them a top salary. That's why when I hear people and I see people complain about nonprofit salaries, I think, what kind of a CEO are you going to get if you pay them $100,000? You're not going to get somebody that can manage their way out of a paper bag. You're not going to get somebody that can manage a lemonade stand unless they're a multimillionaire and they say, hey, I'm going to run this local March of Dimes for fun. You got to pay people a reasonable salary. And there's going to be people that nitpick and say, no, if you're working for a nonprofit, you should be starving. No, you shouldn't. You should be able to walk into a decent office. You should maybe even be able to get a company car, a nonprofit car. You should make bare minimum 6 figures, and you shouldn't work in a shack. And when other people sit outside and say, oh, these nonprofits, let them laugh. Let them eat cake. Make a good salary. You're not going to attract any talent if you pay them peanuts.
John, you and I disagree on this because of the fact
I know.
that
That's why I started the conversation saying we disagree.
I say what you do is you go find retired executives and say, hey, look, we know you're doing well. You got your 401k, which has turned into an 802k. We know you're doing real well for yourself. You got money in the bank. You got a nice house. You got a nice car. You know what? You were an excellent CEO of this company. We'd like you to come back, and we will give you an honorarium of $2,000 a month. And you know what? And matter of fact, we'll give you a gas card from QT that's got $100 a week on it. And would you run this organization for us because we know you'd be the best? You could find people to do that.
I love that, Brett. I love that idea. And I think if people would take the bait, if women and men would take the bait, but you're not going to get a Kitty Ratcliffe to come manage the March of Dimes for an honorarium when she's been working her off. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah, Kitty Ratcliffe.
If you could actually do it, I agree that would be a great. Otherwise, in the real world, you're going to have to pay people a lot of money to run these organizations.
So Kitty Ratcliffe did such a good job with the convention or whatever she was, and they pay her off a year salary, and they pay her off, all her sick time. I'm going but see, and by the way, let me go back and mention, you talk about people won't work. Have you ever heard the stories about what the offices are like down in Bentonville, Arkansas for Walmart? You ever heard the story?
Yeah, and you and I have talked about it, and I told the story of a family member who went in there. But tell the story again, Brad.
A friend of mine used to be a rep for a company, and he talks about he would go down and pitch Walmart on stocking their product, and he said the one office he went into, it was a guy literally with a folding table, and you sat in a lawn chair. He had lawn chairs in his office. Okay, once again, I'm going yes, that's the way it should be. And once again, I disagree with you, John. I say I say that you can find people. God, someday, maybe next break, I'll tell the story. I almost want to give the name of the person, but I had a situation that hit me years ago with the radio station that just turned my stomach about something that had happened with me and an interaction with a charity and stuff like that. And once again, are they all bad? No, but I'm saying this is the thing that bothers me about churches and not-for-profits, okay? I compete with Joy 99, okay? I pay 1,000% more to the FCC for regulatory fees than Joy 99 pays. I guess I pay infinity more because guess what? Their regulatory fees are zero. Okay, if they file an application with the FCC to change their intent or something like that, they pay zero. If they own their own tower, which I don't think they do, but if they own their own tower, if they own their own building, which they do, they pay zero. They pay zero in personal property taxes. Okay, why is that fair? How is that fair? And you could say, well, they don't compete with you. Bull poo-poo, they don't compete with me. They're another radio station that's got ears. We're all competing for ears. We're competing for ears, and how we figure out how many people, we count the number of ears and divide by 2. That's how we do in the ratings, okay? And let me tell you, Joy 99 kicks gluteus maximus in the ratings, okay? And those are people that could be listening to Y98 or KZK or KMOX or KC or stuff like that. No, they're listening to a company that pays no taxes, and I have been told, I don't know if this is true or not, I've been told that the guy who founded Joy 99, which was started out as a station down in Potosi, is 98.7 or something like that.
Okay, go ahead, get to it.
Lives in a $22 million home. Okay? So
well, good for him. He deserves it. It sounds like class warfare. Go ahead. It sounds like envy. Brad, the difference between you and Joy 99 is you don't have an army of people who drive around with being great drivers with 99.1 stickers who are always good drivers and who never cut you off in traffic. You don't have that army. Therefore, you don't deserve the tax breaks.
Have you ever been cut off by a car that has a 99.1 bumper sticker on it?
All the time. All the time.
They're the worst drivers in the world.
That's the St. Louis joke, right? Like if somebody's weaving in and out of traffic, right, flipping people off, there's a good chance they got a 99.1. I may be stereotyping a little bit.
Should I start off the next segment by telling my WCBW story, which I don't think I've ever told before?
Oh, I don't know that story. No, that sounds like either a great radio station or WB just reminds me of White Boy. So either way, it's going to be a good story.
Okay, well, I'll tell the story next break.
Thanks for checking out the Brad and John Show podcast. This segment of the show is brought to you by John Combest's book, Stalking, Harassment, Internet Trolling, A Guide to Recovering and Rebuilding After Online Attacks. It's a great reference if you've ever been the unfortunate target of a social media attack. It's available on Amazon. Just search John Combest. That's Combest, John Combest, and the book will show up in your search results. Now it's time for another segment of the Brad and John Show. Can you handle it?